Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. So now guys, the narrative of the Imo State gubernatorial ruling by the Supreme Court, it continues unabated. The story still goes on. With that guys, I bring you this. Our ruling on Imo governorship will haunt Nigeria for a long time, and this is a Supreme Court justice saying this, so an acknowledgement that a wrong was done. So the headline again: our ruling on Imo governorship will haunt Nigeria for a long time, and this is attributed to a Supreme Court justice. So now let's now see what's being said here. The decision of Nigeria Supreme Court on the Imo State governorship election is wrong and will continue to haunt Nigeria's electoral jurisprudence for a long time to come, one of the judges of the Apex Court said on Tuesday. Sentos Nweze, who disagreed with the majority ruling of his six colleagues, said this in his minority judgment. Mr. Nweze on Tuesday gave a dissenting judgment in the application filed by Emeka Ihedioha of the People's Democratic Party (PDP). Mr. Ihedioha had asked the Apex Court to set aside its judgment on Imo governorship that declared Hope Uzodinma of the All Progressive Congress (APC) governor of the state. The former governor was earlier declared the winner of the election by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). He and the PDP approached the court after the Apex Court on January the 14th nullified his victory and declared Mr. Uzodinma as the winner of the election. His ground for appealing the Supreme Court decision includes the claim that Mr. Uzodinma deceived the Supreme Court with his self-tabulated results from 388 polling units, and that based on the results accepted by the Supreme Court, the number of voters in the Imo governorship election outnumbers the accredited voters for the election, a situation that would ordinarily invalidate an election. On Tuesday, the Apex Court dismissed Mr. Ihedioha's application, asking it to reverse its earlier judgment. The court, led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko Mohammed, held that it lacked powers to sit on appeal on its own judgments delivered on merit and in accordance with the dictates of law and justice. In dismissing the application, the justices with the majority judgment include the CJN, Olukayode, Ariwola, Sylvester Ngwata, Kudirat Kekereekun, Amina Augwe, and Uwani Abba Aji. So those are the six justices that dismissed Emeka Ihedioha's application for a review out of hand on the basis of lack of merit, but indeed out of hand, in essence out of hand. But in his dissenting judgment, Justice Nweze held that a judgment or order can be set aside on merit. He said the Apex Court has the power to overrule itself and has done so in the past. Mr. Nweze was not part of the original 7-member panel that nullified Mr. Ihedioha's election on January 14. He was added to the panel in place of Amina Sanusi, who retired from the Apex Court in January. In giving his dissenting judgment on Tuesday, Mr. Nweze nullified the declaration of Mr. Uzodinma as the governor on account of the wrong declaration. He held that Mr. Uzodinma mischievously misled the court into unjust conclusion with unverified votes credited to himself in the disputed 388 polling units. In my intimate reading of the January 14 judgment, the meat and substance of Mr. Ihedioha's matter were lost to the time frame. This court once set aside its own earlier judgment and therefore cannot use the time frame to extinguish the right of any person. This court has the powers to overrule itself and can revisit any decision not in accordance with justice, he said. According to Mr. Nweze, the decision of the Supreme Court in the instant matter will continue to haunt our electoral jurisprudence for a long time to come. He added that without evidence of meeting other constitutional provisions, the court misled itself into declaring Mr. Uzodinma as governor. The judge said that Mr. Uzodinma and his party misled the court to accept the allegedly excluded results in the 388 polling units without indicating the votes polled by other political parties. He also faulted the results from the said polling units without indicating the numbers of accredited voters in the polling unit. Mr. Nweze recalled how Mr. Uzodinma during the election tribunal admitted that he hijacked the result sheets from the electoral umpire officials and completed the result sheets by himself. He said such results cannot be valid without indicating the number of accredited voters. This court has a duty of redeeming its image. It is against this background that the finality of the court cannot extinguish the right of any person. I am of the view that this application should succeed. I hereby make an order repealing the decision of this court made on January 14, and that the certificate of return issued to the appellant returned to INEC. I also make an order restoring the respondents as the winner of the March 9, 2019 governorship election, Mr. Nweze said in his minority ruling, which was, however, overruled by the majority decision. So there is common sense within the Nigerian judicial system, but that common sense within the Nigerian judicial system is 1 in 7. So that is the ratio now that we're operating with now. So hope is not completely lost, but our hope is dim and fading, because hope in Nigeria is 1 in 7, and its hope is 1 in 7, and a simple majority is 4. So you can see now how far we are from hope really in the country. So this guy is not giving us even more flesh to this particular narrative. Apparently, allegedly, this Uzodinma during the electoral tribunal stage had already confessed that he snatched ballot return papers, the number counts, and amended it himself. And this is the same person now that is bringing a set of figures to the Supreme Court for them then to use to make a judgment. And the Supreme Court did not deem it fit to interrogate these figures, and even when more information has come to light, they're still doubling down on their position to say that no, these figures that are wrong by this guy that is a known criminal, because it is a criminal act to snatch electoral sheets from electoral officials. So this guy who is a known criminal, who has brought you these figures, and who had in a previous court, in a prior court, a lower court, admitted to snatching return sheets and amending them, he's now presenting you figures, and you are accepting those figures wholesale, and subsequent evidence has now emerged to say that those figures do not stand to logic because they outweigh the numbers of people accredited. And even with that new information, you are still doubling down now on the wrong judgment. So this is what is going on in Imo State. It is almost is unfathomable, as I said in a previous video. It beggars belief. I don't know. It's just a baffling thing. This wrongdoer who has done wrong has gone to the foremost apex court within the land with wrongdoing, and the apex court has assented to that wrongdoing, maybe unwittingly in the first instance, but then subsequent evidence has now come to say this wrongdoing was wrongdoing and wrong was done, and this is the proof of that wrong that's been done. Please review it. And then they've reviewed it, and they've still weighed on the side of the decision of wrongdoing that they had done prior. I don't know sometimes with the Nigerian system, but this is the latest narrative with the Uzodinma Ihedioha saga, a story that will never end. Can you just imagine somebody like Ihedioha? Imagine if you were Emeka Ihedioha. You fought hard and long for that election, and it's an expensive thing as well. You fought hard and true, and then you won an election, and then of course then you were acknowledged the winner, only for it to be snatched from you through an act of illegality assented to by the foremost court in the land. So this is now the narrative. So can you imagine what is going on in this guy's mind? Because really, what is the point of having elections even in Nigeria is really the question that I keep on asking, because I'm yet to see an election that represents the will of the people within the Nigerian state. We saw the presidential election, we saw this Imo state election, we saw the Osun state election, we saw the Lagos state election, we saw, I mean, name any election that was free and fair. We saw what happened in Kano state, where this guy was losing, and by abracadabra they paused and then they declared him the winner. I'm talking about Ganduje. So what's the point of having elections in Nigeria? Is really, they say, oh, it's a growing, this 20 years into this democratic thing, it was since 1999, you know, it's over 20 years even. I mean, how long do they need to take to get it right? Because I cannot see any progress being made when the people vote for a person, but then the court, through some illegal act by some person, which has now been established as an illegal act, still declare that person doing that illegal act as the winner. Anyway, come tell me what you're making of all this in the comment section, because you can tell from the tone of my voice. But before you do that, click on the red subscribe button so it turns gray. The bell button notifies you every time I drop a new video. Then come have a conversation with me about all this in the comment section. The ratio of honesty and integrity versus other is 1 in 7 in Nigeria. So where is hope? Come tell me where hope is placed in within the Nigerian space in the comment section. So I'll leave you here. Carry this conversation on with you in the comment section. But here I say peace.